king f8. So black resigned. DC. Alright guys, next game. He's back. You're back. You're back. You're back again. Back for the second time. So this is Sunk Prism. Sunk Prism was here. He was here first. Guys, it's... Wow, it got hotter. Oh my god, dude. It's almost 40 in my office. Let me check. 37 over there. It's 40 on the wall. I don't think it's ever been 40 when I've been streaming, but it's a dry 40. It's not like your Dragonfly Hunter lives in Florida, dude. It must be a nightmare. Swamp cooler. It's a dry 40 here. Thank God. You know, I would be dying if it was humid. We have like no rain or water. Hungary is a desert. Actually, it's often humid. Yeah, my AC is coming next week, I hope. Alright, so d4, knight of 6, knight of 3. And now I've been playing a lot of same repertoire as Sunk Prism in a sense, because it's like Nimzo, Bogo Indian a lot. But I've been doing a lot of b6. I like the b6 for a couple of reasons. But anyway, whatever. e6 is fine. White plays e3. Now, one of the advantages, like, you know, in b6 there is, like, if I play b6, if they do e3, then I can go immediately to, like, a double fianchetto type of thing. I didn't waste time with e6. If they're going to play something lame, you know. Here, anyways. Okay, e6. E3. Yeah, now it's either... I mean, if you wanted to play d5, then why not just play d5 on move 1 or move 2? So my thought about playing the Indian defenses has always been that if I wanted to play d5, I would play the move on the freaking opening, right in the first move or two. I've never been a fan of playing d5 based setups. If we want to play Indian defenses, then we don't necessarily want to play an early d5, commit our center. So I think the best way to play, you know, for black is either b6 or c5. But, you know, which is better? Who's to say, like, which is better? I mean, c5 more directly attacks the center. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with d5. c5, bishop d3. So it's a likely call is Zukertort. Now you have, you know, you can always go back to d5, but again, what's the point? You have a choice here between b6 and knight b6. Knight c6, I'm sorry. No, bishop e7 is just a move, but ultimately I think we want to decide if we're going to play a knight c6 based setup, or we want to keep that knight back and possibly try to conserve its movement to play a role in a hedgehog type scenario. So if you play b6, you don't commit your knight to c6. And there are advantages and disadvantages of that, but the main one would be to play for a hedgehog type formation. So let's say castles, bishop b7. Now we'll see what white's going to do. They might play b3, they might play c4, might play knight on bd2. But there's a lot of cases where you might play d6 and knight on bd7 and not commit your knight to c6. I've had games where I played knight c6 and then had to like play d6 and had to bring it back, literally bring it back. You know, Jula Breyer style, knight c6 back to b8 in the late opening, early middle game. And so that's the reasoning, I think, as to why you may not want to play knight c6. Having said that, it's a good move. It puts immediate pressure on the center. But this bishop is not going to be open, and your knight might have to move again later. b3. Now, in some instances, we could play queen c7 and try to maybe trick white with some sort of threats like knight b4, double attacking c2 and d3. So I do think that this move should be considered here. The timing of the move is interesting. b6, I would think, would transpose. You played bishop e7. d5 is going to transpose back to a d5 based setup. I think another thing that we want to think about here, Rubinstein, for example, had a game with. Rubinstein was playing sometimes. He would play sometimes the Kolnowski-Colley attack, and he had one game with Dositmirsky where he criticized Dositmirsky because Dositmirsky did like c takes d for no reason. But thinking back on that, I'm pretty sure that Dositmirsky did it in a position where he had played d5. If you play, for example, queen c7 and white castles, you can play c takes d, e takes d, and then go knight b4. And now white is screwed because you have an attack on c2 and an attack on the bishop on d3. So queen c7 is a very flexible move. Windows security. Microsoft Defender summary. Thank you. I needed that right now. Well, anyway. So bishop e7, not a bad move. You're developing. If he takes on c5, Akor, Hungarian, I'm sorry. Sometimes I say some Hungarian words. Akor means like then. Well then. Then you lost the tempo. This is really a Tartikover or Queen's Gambit now, like with reverse colors. If white wants to guarantee that his bishop's not going to be like closed down by a pawn on d4, they could take on c5. The position is basically equal after bishop e2. But by not playing takes on c5, now you go back to b6, and that gives you option to take the pawn, obviously. I've played this setup a lot with white. I played your position a lot from the other side, reverse colors, with the white pieces as like a neo, ready, whatever. A3, classic move. Queen c7, bishop b7 looks more to the point at this stage. And now white normally will develop. c4, I guess, c4. Now we can start thinking about some positions where we get a sort of hanging pawn type of setup for white, where you'll play d5. Sometimes your bishop is better on d6, sometimes it's better on e7. Another point is that queen c7, queen f4 can often be very useful. But yeah, c4 is kind of a risky move for white. There's this square, f5 or f4, that could be useful. Alright, so bishop e7, and he takes. I don't like takes, but it's safe. Now, Asterbait would 100% play bishop takes c5 here. And that's the safer move, in a sense. It's always safer to take with the pieces rather than the pawn. Well, Arsenal's talking about like c takes d4. Of course you can take on d4. But white can also take with the knight, like kind of getting a boring position. The more gutsy way to play with white is take with the pawn. But here's where we run into problems with our knight on c6. If we want to play a hedgehog, it's in the wrong place. So it's awkward. Anyways, nothing wrong with bishop e7. White plays this. You can take back either way. This is the more aggressive way to take. And now I think that white should probably play c4. But I guess he doesn't have to play it right away. Only thing is, if you wait, do you give black the chance to play d5? So I'm saying like this is the most natural. Plus it gives white the ability to put the knight on c3, possibly. Now Arsenal fan asks another reasonable question: what happens if white plays e4? Then he's playing the Sicilian, I guess. That's what happens. Now, it's not really a Sicilian, because we still have a pawn on c5. It's a double Sicilian. We traded our pawn on d4, now we have another one. Yeah, e4, that's possible, of course. So he takes Krutoslav Hulak, 1994. It is notable that no one played d takes c. I think it's a concession. B takes c, knight on bd2. This is kind of passive. Now, one game here is in the database. Stanets against Bezold. Austrian, originally from Yugoslavia, and German Grandmaster. But Bezold castled. I mean, again, we're playing a hypermono type of game, so do you want to play d5? It obviously looks like a strong move, and Sun Prism decided to do it, but on the other hand, Castles is more flexible. I mean, because there's a chance, honestly, that you might want to just play d6. See? There's one game here with d6. Looks like it's correspondence. You can just play this structure. You don't have to commit to d5. But Betzel's move's also very interesting. He played a5, and this is aggressive. And Arsenal asked what happens if e4. a5, a4, a very aggressive plan. Playing it like a kind of Nimzo. And now on e4, now he decided to play d5. He didn't like allowing white to play e5. It's a complex position. I don't know who's better here. But anyway, nothing wrong with d5. You have positional sacrifice like c4 maybe. He has c4, he has e4. d5 is definitely a perfectly fine move. Castles, castles. And so now we've got a bunch of games. Naka getting this position obviously from one of his b3 openings. He's got it twice against Gelfand and Firouzja. Guaranteed, that was like 1b3. Those games were played 2013, 2020. There's one game with Queen e2, normal move. But I don't think that white has an advantage here. The position should be basically equal. The number one move is c4. Queen e2 also looks reasonable. If you put the queen on e2, white could possibly try to play e4 like Arsenal was talking about. But with the queen on e2, you're going to have to watch like knight h5, knight f4. You might have to play g3 to defend the f4 square. Someone played rook c1. That's super lame. This is super lame. Kenneth Lundberg. Alright. So your opponent played a novelty, knight e5. So this is fine. This is like white is being black and just swapping pieces. But ultimately think about this move for a minute, He is trading off the knight on c6. That's kind of a problem piece for you. I wouldn't be unhappy to see this. On the other hand, you're like 1 millimeter away from Lasker Bauer double bishop sacrifice on the king side here. Right? I would imagine there's some way that black could dramatically lose this game. There's some kind of study like 2 bishop sacrifice or something. White really needs the f4, followed by heavy pieces filtering in with rook f3, queen f3, queen h5. Fundamentally, black has to be fine here. Now what happened? Oh, this didn't happen. He played 95. You didn't trade it. For me, it's like, it's an auto trade. It's all good, There's no... What could possibly go wrong if you take? But you instead play queen c7, which is okay, but... Again, I like this piece, like, getting open. I think this helps us. Arsenal's move involves more tension, like knight d7. You gotta watch out for these sort of cheapo threats, like knight h6. Something to that effect. But knight d7 looks like it could be a move. Sure. Then there's the old, like, queen h5, g6, double p, sacrifice, checkmate. This is a fucking nightmare. I imagine that's winning. I mean, the point is, like, the safest thing to do is just trade it off. And his bishop isn't well placed on e5. I mean, the bishop on e5 is vulnerable to being attacked. So maybe later you're going to hit it with knight d7. If you hit it with knight d7 here, queen h5, it doesn't work, right? I mean, you have g6. So we can simply do it like that. I mean, this is the safest way to play it. Take there, bishop f6. Bro. If anything, black is a little bit better now, right? He has no choice. Queen h5, h6. Does that work? Queen h5, h6. Queen h5, g6 doesn't work? What? Oh, I see. So he just trades and then forces you to weaken your king side a little. Uh-huh. Yeah, g6 is a slightly weakening move for us. We'd really rather not have that. Guys, don't forget to invite your children and grandparents, because we have 10 viewers today. I realize it's summer, but we gotta get a little more exposure. So we're gonna start gifting some gift subs now. Alright, it's up to me. People don't want to think. I could give a lecture on this. I'm gonna go into public speaking soon. Queen c7. So f4, and now d4. So I'm going to turn off the engine. But Sun Prism did it to himself. Like, the longer you leave that piece on e5, the more dangerous it becomes. That's why Roman always encouraged me to eliminate pieces as soon as possible. Now he has the additional possibility of f takes e5 with some serious kingside attack. So Sun Prism went into Chaosville now with d4. It's very interesting, and it might be good. But we're going to have to calculate. And it's not easy to come to the conclusion whether this is the right approach or... The obvious move is knight takes e5. But after bishop takes e5, yeah, you have to move again. That's probably okay. If he takes to the pawn, I'm a little more concerned, because now this is bearing down. He has rook lifts. It's a little slow for you here. Let's see. Still, you're okay. So, roll the dice. We're rolling the dice. There is a problem. Problem is that white is playing like Nimzovich. We want to get counterplay on the long diagonal. But what's happening if the whole thing closes up? Let's say knight takes c6, queen takes c6, e4. Now, I don't like that your pawns are static there. I understand that his bishop is blocked in, and that's kind of a good thing. But by the same token, there's a static situation with our pawns. It's not really great, They're very committed. So Arsenal fan is suggesting here, and ideas of f5. But, white has moves too, and I think it's hard to say. My feeling is that the pawns are kind of committed, a little too committed. But nevertheless, I think this is probably white's natural try. pretty much... Yeah, you do have an interesting move here. I don't know if it works. C4. This is probably just fancy, and he just takes to the pawn or something. But I mean, it's something you do have to consider. Take. If he takes with the knight, you might have this. Maybe knight a5 busts us. Probably it does. Anyways, there's a lot of calculation. You rip the position open. I wouldn't do this without a lot of thinking time. He takes on d4. And still he has a very strong knight on e5. There's nothing that we can do about that. I would consider taking with a pawn. Obviously you should consider this as well. Kind of just keep going. You took with a knight though. And that means his knight on e5 is stable. But you shut down his bishop on b2. Which I like. So, I don't think the pawn structure is a big deal. You have the sort of typical split A and C pawns in the middle game. That's not so bad, usually. And your knight on d4 is a very strong piece that's difficult for him to get rid of, you know, so my instinct here is that the position is still like equal, probably, somewhere around equal. But Asterbate just had a game like this where his opponent gave up his dark square bishop in a... It was a... What was that opening, Arsenal Asterbate? What was it? Your guy... It was a wing gambit, and he had a bishop on b2, and he traded off for a knight on e5, I think. But same thing, okay, when you do this now, suddenly, bloop, all the dark squares are like a free-for-all, like the whole position. That's a lot of weaknesses to deal with. You know, does this guy realize? Yeah, e3 is a problem. This is a big problem. You know, the knight implanting itself on like e3 or c3. So, white might sit there and say, well, my bishop's not doing anything on b2. But objectively, maybe, you know, he should play, what about there? You know, knight f3. I guess it might not work because you take and take on f4. I have to calculate this, but just hypothetically, takes, queen takes f4. Looks like you're winning a pawn. Maybe your queen is trapped. Jeez, almost. Queen is almost trapped. No, not quite though. So, knight takes d4. It's hard to do anything about that. Maybe white should consider the awkward c3. Awkward. Very awkward. +1. So the computer prefers to play around the knight for white with this or queen e1. Yeah. Not easy to do, but okay, it looks like that's his best plan. This looks like a definite mistake. So he basically gives up the dark squares. You go knight d5. Now you have to watch this. But, okay, queen h5. You do have f5. As a French defense player, I would think you would strongly consider that. It's ugly though, because you would make your backward pawn on e6. Hard to get rid of the knight on there. What about g6? Is this one of those cases where we can like let him sack one piece and not take the other one? No, I think that playing f5 is super committal, and g6 is very interesting. He has a perpetual check, I guess, if you... Well, at least perpetual check, you're probably close to getting mated. But if he sacrifices one piece, you know, you just take once, and then you, like, you know, defend, and you're probably winning. So what about g6? It's a little bit risky. Queen h6. But honestly, I think it might be good. We go here, we bring the bishop back to g7. He's sorry he doesn't have a dark square bishop. So, and then of course there's h6. But that leaves us stuck. Like, what do we do now? We can't get rid of the knight on e5. Can you try f5 of g6? No. Here? No. I misunderstood you. Clearly, I do not understand. You do not mean this. So, queen h5, g6, queen moves, something like bishop f6. Maybe you meant here? That doesn't seem to work either. We all have our dumb moments. Anyway, I'm curious what the computer says. Yeah, g6 is the best move. With knight f6, you're stuck, man. You're stuck. You have to realize this is his whole position, this knight on e5, you know. So this leaves you in like an awkward, what, is it a draw? Queen h4, knight e4, one of those things? Are you going to do queen h4, knight e4, queen h5, knight f6, knight e4, draw? There's that variation in one of the e3, actually one of the e3 Queen's Indian lines. That commonly happened. But we don't want to draw. You've got two bishops. His knights are redundant. g6 was the best move. Knight f6, queen... Okay, queen h4, knight e4. He played queen h3. Now you can't repeat, but you can play g6. Now he has this additional thing, but there's no mate now, you know, so you can just take. You're definitely winning here. He can't sacrifice. Maybe he has a better move. If g6 rook, ae1, and it's possible he'll build up some kind of threats. I don't like that knight at e5, man. There was this game that Carlsen like lost against the Pomniachi 2 years ago. Do you remember? Does anybody remember? Magnus was black against the Pomniachi. He had some kind of knight on e5, and he just like played around it or tried to play around it. It should have been eliminated in the first place. The longer you leave it there, the more problems that are going to happen. Alright, this is like a last resort. So, we managed to trade off the bishop, but here's the problem. You don't really want to trade off your bishop pair. Take. So knight e4 is actually very tempting. You can still do it. You know, knight e4, rook e1, f5. And I think you have the upper hand still. Because, you know, this is hard to attack. The pawn on e6 is hard to attack. And you still have... You can go acerbate on him, you know, way later. Actually, rook f6 looks pretty good. You can do the Stonewall attack. It's not just him, you know. So, bishop e4 is a really, like, super too safe way to play it. Not sure he's benefiting by exchanging here. Getting your knight off of f6. This knight on f6 is a problem, you know. So white should just go here. What are you gonna play, like bishop g6 or something? I mean, you're not getting out of this. It looks like white has the upper hand after bishop e4. Maybe you can play queen b7 or something. It looks kind of dangerous to me. Why not play f5? Oh, f5. Why not play f5? Well, it destabilizes the knight on e5, that's why. You've got to give squares to get squares, Arsenal. Well, you want a reason not to play f5. This is the reason why not to play f5. Black can try to undermine that now. I don't know if he can successfully do that, but that's the idea. So we could play bishop d6, for example. Does it work? I have no idea. clearly it's a possibility. I would assume here. And shit is hitting the fan. Take twice on e4 and take on e6. Oh, after knight e4, rook e1, f5. Knight e4. There's a lot of possible moves here. Like, you might have f5 there immediately. But let's say I looked at this variation, f5. Take twice on e4. Bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, pawn takes e4, king takes e6 check, king over, knight check, takes, and white is up a pawn. For example. Still a very unclear situation. Yeah, that's so clear, it's still very close. Yeah, no, black still has counterplay here. There's too much to analyze. But I think this is a very, very, like, ultra safe approach with bishop e4 and knight e4. I would prefer knight e4. Ultimately, we want to get that knight off of f5 or at least play f5 to stabilize the king side. This is safe. All right. But I think that's a big mistake by white. He traded on e4. I don't see how that helps him. Now, maybe he does the same thing you were talking about. Rook a e1, sack the rook on. Like, this should be the move, right? What other move is there for white? Arsenal's going to be like f5. We have knight d6 now. Kind of a new defensive idea to hit the f5. But white wants to develop their pieces, so this makes sense. And if you go here, the Saeed's idea again, is still kind of unclear. We reached that same position. But you don't have to play f5, okay? This is still possible, but I would say knight d6. Black is slightly better according to the engine. Even though white's seemingly better developed, it's interesting that black is better. Because the bishop ultimately may be a better piece than a knight, but by a small margin. So anyway, he plays queen d3. That's a massive lemon. Queen d3, really, that sucks. His queen, okay, it's centralized, but it's also prone to being attacked. He's practically begging you to attack it. I mean, already you have like knight c5 and knight takes b3. Just for starters, to get warmed up, you can go here and win the exchange. He can't take the pawn on d4. After knight c5, okay. You have to go back to like f3, which is best. But now you can start to think about kicking his knight out, for the first time. So he plays queen d3, and you play knight c3. That's not bad. The best thing about knight c3 is that your knight can come back to a really good square where it's centralized on d5. Rook f3, subtle. I would never imagine what he's trying to do with rook f3. It might be something about this and the threat of mate in one. Rook f d8. Rook f d8. What is your a rook doing? There's no way I'm playing rook f d8. You're practically begging this guy to sack his knight on f7. There is 0% chance I'm playing that move. If anything, rook a d8, probably. But you as a French player, maybe you saw this and you didn't like rook h3 or something. You'll have to play h6 there. Yeah. But I get it. I get it. You don't want to play f6 necessarily. You have a lot of options, though. You could even play g6. Where am I? Here. You could even play g6 with the idea of fianchettoing. So your bishop becomes a defender. But I don't like rook f d8. I don't see what your a rook is really doing. Rook h3. And now, obviously, if you play g6, I would prefer to play g6, bishop f8, probably clearly better. But he has sacks. Sacks Fifth Avenue. This is like very, very problematic. That's why I don't want to move the rook from f8 first, at least. It's a different story if your bishop's like on g7 or something and your queen is protecting f7. But you have nothing protecting, it's the weak point. So now you can't play g6, you play h6, okay. He plays f5, which weakens e5. That's the problem now. He's going to weaken his own knights. And bishop d6 looks logical. Because his knights are redundant. Knight takes d6. Queen takes d6. So he plays rook e1. You take. Fine. And then rook takes. And you're out of the woods more or less. f6 might be a threat. Well, ftc. ftc as well. The black should be fine here. I mean, you're no longer worse. There's some threats. Your move makes a lot of sense. I mean, rook d5. Rook d5 looks fine. This is the point. Does he have queen takes d4? Never. All right, so back. Look at those pawns. They're weaknesses, but they're strengths at the same time. Can't take on d4. The d5 pawn is dominating him. Suddenly you're like winning after this move. Jesus. So how bad was that decision to trade pawns? I mean rooks. Pawns, rooks, whatever. He has pawn takes? No. He almost has pawn takes. Can I take on f5 now? Man, I want to play like pawn takes pawn or something. The knight on c3 is strong. Yeah. Rook takes d5. This is a disaster. Suddenly white is like losing. This looks really bad. You played rook e8. I mean, also queen e5 is strong. That allows knight f3. Okay, never mind. Well, I don't know. You know, queen e5, knight f3, queen e3 check. Do you want to take here? You better be doing some calculation. Rook e8 is good. Black is clearly better. Knight f3. Is that good? Suddenly his rook is stuck over there, and Sun Prism has control of the center. That's all that matters. Control the center. So instead of there, you had rook e3. Rook e3, yeah. I agree with Arsenal fan. This looks extremely strong. His pieces got splattered. The queen's going to be like on a6. His rook's over there on the other side. And all three of black's pieces are like coordinated in the middle. I'm not sure. Oh, you went for the material. Okay, this wins the exchange. No, it's concrete. He wins the exchange. Yeah, it's funny how fast white went south. White had kind of an initiative the whole time till he didn't. And then he was like just suddenly lost. But Sun Prism played a very solid game. White did not. Yeah, alright, good game. So next is Drawing Paint against Arsenal fan. And then I'm going to share the Richie. The other Richie. Two Richies today. Actually, I don't know. Richard Brenton went on another vacation or something. How's the weather? Is it rainy there? In the UK? Richie too? Because we got 101 degrees in my office. I think it's up to 102, boys and girls. We're up to 102. It's sweltering hot? Okay. I have a friend in Denmark. It's actually rainy and cool there. That's a little different. A little bit. Not the same. UK and Denmark. Sweltering. We've got Arsenal fan as black. Everybody has black games today. Alright. D4. Knight of 6. C4. C5. Going for the Benoni. 102. 102 Fahrenheit. It's 40 degrees Celsius in my office right now. This is the hottest it's been all day. That's funny. I mean, it's already 8:40, and that's the highest it's gotten. It's just under 40. It's like 39.3 probably. Just almost on the 40. But we're lucky that it's not humid. I bet Arsenal has some humidity. C4, C5, knight f3. Climate change isn't real. Those melting ice caps, that's no problem. E6. So, well, we've talked about this many times. You play what you want to play. The fact that, the nice thing about e6, it gives white another chance to go into the Benoni. If you play c takes d4, you're not going to get a Benoni. If you want to play the Benoni, give him another chance to play the Benoni, right? e6. Plus, as you talked about, you can play the Blumenfeld too. Hawaii, you got a little bit of winds. Plus the volcanoes. It's a win-win situation. You guys hear that story about some woman who was on a tour, I don't know where, South America? She fell in a volcano. But not like an active volcano, but her tour guide abandoned her. But it turns out she fell hundreds of feet down, and then they heard she was alive. I don't know where this is. Does anyone know the story? I haven't seen the news today, so I don't know. But she was screaming or something, but they couldn't get to her. It's like a operation. Oops! I fell in a volcano. Yeah. So Mr. Slow is helping the new subscriber, saying he should send a message to me on lichess, or you can put it on. If you're lazy, you can put it on Twitch. I don't know if she's still alive. I think she was a Brazilian woman, a tourist from Brazil or something, but I don't know where it was. I don't think it's Hawaii. I don't think it was in the States. Anyway, okay, white played knight c3. So this is always a bummer when you're black. White won't cooperate and play d5, which is the normal case. So here we have a million options. But, it's hard to decide which is better than another. I don't have any special recommendation. When I did my Blumenfeld course, I was recommending, trading and playing a very unusual move here with bishop c5. I recommended this because, for some reason, there's very little you can just put it in the stream chat if you want King's Indian Defense. Just put a link to your game in the stream chat. You're a subscriber. Feel free. So c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop c5. I'm just recommending that because there's a billion games if you go into mainline. The mainline symmetrical English is massive amount of theory. So what was that? Albin Kanukus. That sits out. Not sits out, sits out. Had followed earlier. So Arsenal fan. Other options include a6. Here's an option, but it's more for Benko players. Like Michael Valvo played against me. No, that was a different position. Well, anyway, you can play a6 and then play b5. It's a kind of pseudo, but that's not as correct as CD or d5. CD and d5 are your best moves here, period. Okay, so d5 though, you're no longer playing a Benoni, obviously. Very much different from Benoni. CD5. Now knight takes is obviously the safer. As I always say, take with the piece is safer than taking with the pawn. We have a choice in most cases. But taking with the pawn leads to it leads to the Tarash. And the thing is that this move traditionally, this particular move order traditionally was considered to be like slightly inaccurate for black. But it's kind of a bullshit, I think misevaluated position. They always thought that the knight is better to have the knight on c6. Like it mattered, like which knight you brought out first than the Tarash. But it turns out, if you check with the computer, that this is just as okay as knight c6. So that's why there's a million games here, like Carlsen playing black or whatever. It was a misinterpretation, misevaluation that this is necessarily a worse Tarash, because Rubinstein won some game with white 100 years ago. Everyone thought it was bad or an inaccurate move order for black. So what happened there? Sorry to derail. What is your idea against reverse Franzi bind? Ugh. Don't allow it. Offer a draw or don't allow it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my last 2 games in that were draws against Grandmasters. I offered a draw against Farago Ivan. Offered a draw against Naj Gabor. And then before that, I lost against like International Master what's his name? Wrote some books. You guys wouldn't know his name. Anyway, a strong I am. So my score with the Rubinstein variation of the English is really solid for black. I would just you really want to look at it deeply. Okay, he sent me the game on lichess, practicing always. You mean it's drawish? Well, no, I mean, it can even be better for black if white isn't accurate, Very easy to be worse with white, Saeeds. Of course, it takes a very strong player to play that type of system, to be honest with you, Saeeds. So, I'm not worried about it unless it's master level opposition. Then I'm worried about it. Practicing always, okay. So, view on lichess, copy game, study, alright. So, alright, I think I can survive one more game before I pass out from heat exhaustion. So this is Drying Pain versus Arsenal fan, blah blah blah, d5, cd5, ed5, flip the board, and then bishop g5. Yeah, so bishop g5 is the accurate move. But unlike one of the accurate moves, bishop g5 or g3 are the main moves. But you can also play bishop f4. Rubinstein played every move: e3, g3, bishop g5, bishop f4. That pretty much covers it. But with the knight at f6, this was long considered to be a good line. So it turns out it's not so clear. That's the acid test. g3 will just transpose back to a normal Tarash after knight c6. Bishop g5 is the refutation, right? So now, see, this was always considered to be better for white, but the computer has proved it, that it's not. If I put this in the computer, it's going to only say like 0.1 advantage. Look at the top 3 games, Carlsen. Carlsen has miraculously scored 2.5 out of 3 with black in this position. Bro. Not because of the opening. Beating Aronyan, beating Wojtasek, and drawing with Vidit. And he also won with white. So your question is, do we play bishop e7, bishop e6, or c takes d? Fundamentally, c takes d, it feels like a good move. But I just realized this is like a c3 Sicilian in reverse, isn't it? Effectively. So Dubov. Well, the whole bishop e6 thing is it reminds me a little of those a6 Queen's Gambits. So Carlsen, Nakamura, Van Forest, Nihal Sarin playing black here. But let's take a look at c takes d4 for a second. Now, which way does white play this? When I said it was like a c3 Sicilian, this is what I'm talking about. D takes c5. Oh, you want to play d takes c5? Well, it depends. I mean, I'm talking about now. That's not considered a big deal. Also, I mean, you're allowing black to take in one move here. Completely playable for white, by the way. But it's probably not an advantage. 0. 0.0. You know, allowing black to take on one shot, you know, bishop takes c5. D takes c5, not surprisingly, is not critical. This is a weird move that's been played in a couple of games. A little too eccentric. Alright, anyway. Bishop g5, bishop e6. Anyway, Arsenal fan, I just want to check this for a second. So queen takes, obviously knight to c6 or bishop e7. Yeah, if queen takes bishop e7, that's fine. It's a c3 Sicilian in reverse. So this move, white has a very good score with. People actually took g takes f here. I mean, that's pretty ugly, bro. Queen takes f6. Now what does white do? Do you take the pawn on d4? Or do you take the pawn on d5? Well, I don't know. I guess if queen d4, black is okay, right? There's one game here. Sosa. He drew. He's going to play bishop b4, right? Yeah, I knew it. This is obviously just some kind of nothing. So we can quickly rule this all out. And yeah, knight takes d5 is the best. And now the question is this. Oh, I don't know about queen d6 or something. Queen d8, best move. Queen d4. Knight c6. An interesting position that's almost never been played, strangely. Edward Moskalenko. Queen d3. Best move according to Stockfish. Bishop e6. This is basically a Henrik gambit. Queenside castles. Uber driver will love this. Just a version of the Henrik gambit. So this is actually playable for black. I think it's worth investigating further. You know, the problem is, dude, they're not gonna challenge you. What's gonna end up happening is everybody's gonna play knight takes d4. I almost guarantee it. You know, this is gonna be like 90% of your games. If you play this move order, they're gonna just take with a knight on d4. And then it's a tiny edge for white. It's a normal e3 tarsh. But you haven't refuted my setup. You know, you haven't refuted my setup. So bishop e6 isn't necessary. So you can play this. You should be able to play this with impunity, because I think that pawn sack is good. Most likely they're gonna take. And the other way queen takes, you have bishop e7. Knight c6 is not as good, probably. I would think here you're very solid. You know, and you're getting your tempo back with like knight to c6. So e3. Actually, this is another Farago Ivan opening. Not knight c6, bishop e5, but castles. c3 Sicilian in reverse. It's a bishop g4, d5, c3 Sicilian with reverse colors. Bishop e2, knight c6, queen d3, blah, 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 blah. And the tempo doesn't really matter too much, you know? It's a normal IQP position. It's like me versus, anyway, I used to play that line for black. So anyway, this is cool. But bishop e6 is more complex. This looks more complex. You're not releasing the tension. Objectively, this might be a better try to win, let's say. Now g3. That's unusual. Unusual, but check it out. Look at the players. All like top-notch players. Abasov, Bu, Sargsyan, and Mamedyarov. So g3 is a cool move. That's an advanced move for white. Most people are just gonna transpose to a Rubinstein type thing. And now black pushes the pawn to c4. Wow. But people have lost here quite a few games. I don't think that c4 is forced. Here's an interesting suggestion, a6, the computer's second choice. Like I said earlier, isn't this going to transpose to one of those a6 Queen's Gambits? This is going to transpose. This is like my game with Jonathan Grant. Bishop e2, knight up bd7, castles, and then why can't you play like bishop d6? Apparently bishop e7 is better. Somehow it doesn't quite transpose. Alright. Well, anyway, it's not guaranteed. Magnus says c4. If Magnus says c4, then we play c4. Anyway, there's some fertile ground for analysis here. It looks like white might still have a tiny edge, but these type of structures aren't easy to play. The Swedish variation. I mean, you know, it becomes very double-edged. You have a queenside majority, and white is stronger in the center. But anyway, g3, drawing paint. So here's the question. If you play bishop e7 and he takes, are you losing a tempo? Or one of those captures, like d takes d5? Majority of players here played knight c6. Well, white gonna have to play bishop g2 anyway, after knight c6. You can play bishop e7 when you want to play bishop e7. You can play a next move, but what's going to happen after knight c6, bishop g2? Now you have to make a decision. But the problem seems to be that your bishop is overloaded. So it looks like you're supposed to play h6. They trade, and I guess they would go after your pawn on d5, but like takes. There's one game with bishop takes d5, knight takes d5. We're getting close to Uber Driverville. Bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, and it's like, oops, check. That I don't like. You're banking on bishop e7, bishop f6, bishop f6, d6. Okay, that's a different idea. I don't know if it's good. But like bishop f6, bishop f6, d takes c, d4. I would be a little skeptical. But yeah, it's playable. This you've got the threat. I guess he has a threat of knight d6 check. Maybe that's okay though. You know, like you go here, sack your castling privileges. Just sack your castling privileges, no big deal. You have good development. Computer isn't buying it. Yeah, so anyway. Oh, you have a better move. Damn, dude. Queen a5. Wow. Totally missed it. Well, in any case, it looks like your move is good enough. Bishop takes f6. Yeah, maybe he takes on c5. This is better. Takes on c5. My concern here is that you're going to transpose into a normal Tarash, where you're like slightly worse. It looks like bishop takes c5, bishop g2. Let's see. Castles, castles. Ramirez, Onishuk. Castles. One of these players has been banned. Yeah, so it's like a slightly inaccurate Tarash where you played the bishop e6 line. They used to play that in the old days. But even this is playable. But in the future, I would say, yeah, you know, the h6 looks like it's better. It's even better. But playable. You're fully playable here. Bishop g2, and now normally the knight would go to c6, but you wanted to defend c5. There's no rush to castle. You know, I don't blame you for not castling. There's one game here with black played castles, but there's no hurry to castle. So it's just more common to put the knight on c5, but with this move you're keeping c5 protected, so I guess it's fine. I don't see any problem with this move. It's hard for white to do anything. What's he gonna do? What does white do? Queen a4, some kind of weird move? What does white have here? Nothing special. What's interesting is that after d takes c5, I would take with a knight, normally. Computer says the white is slightly better. I guess it's normal. You can actually take with the bishop. And it's still fine. So knight d7, not bad. And so we're in a totally new position. This has never been played. D takes c5. You did take with the bishop. White castled. You castled. Damn. And so this is actually, yeah, probably some U.S. championship when Onishuk was still playing. It was 11 years ago. I can't believe it. So it's a standard type of position. White is slightly better. Knight d4 is like best move. And now, yeah, it's weird to see Onishuk playing the Tarash because he played the Queen's Gambit Decline against me. H6. Bam. Somebody's following the opening book, and it's not Arsenal fan. Onishuk played exactly the same as you. Obviously, we got here by a different move order. Exact same position, bishop f4. Obviously, white doesn't want to trade, and if he puts the bishop on e3, it's liable to get attacked by knight g4. But I do think that that's a possibility. He could go here to e3. Because knight g4 isn't necessarily a good move for you. Then he could go bishop f4, bishop c1. And your knight on g4 is possibly misplaced. I don't know. You know, here. The knight on g4 is kind of dubious. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, bishop e3 is an alternative. He goes here. And now Onishuk played queen e7. Some other dude played rook c8, actually. I would think rook e8, but the problem with rook e8 is if white takes on e6, you want to take back with the pawn, and then normally you want your rook on the f file. So when you take on this type of structure in the Tarash with black, you want the rook to be on f8, not on e8. So if we're going to have to take with the pawn, we want the rook on f8. That's why Onishuk goes queen e7, so that if white takes on e6, he takes back with the pawn, and his rook is still active here. But that's the only games, you know, and I like queen e7 better than rook c8, not just because Onishuk played it. Is white threatening anything? Because another move that might be considered is a6, I would think. You played a6, that's why. That's where I got the idea. There's a problem though, huh? There's a problem. Well, actually, that's what Ramirez did. When Onishuk played queen e7, he played knight b3. I'm afraid of knight b3. So now white has a triple attack on d5. That's not good. And in fact, that's what happened to Ramirez versus Onishuk. So Onishuk went here, and then Ramirez went here. It's a double attack, effectively, because he's attacking that twice. So is white winning a pawn here after bishop b6? He can also go knight a4. This needs to be seriously considered. If Ramirez had been more ambitious, what is Onishuk supposed to do after knight a4? What do you want him to play? Like bishop d8? Lembedol? Everyone in the room saw bishop a5 except for you. Is Onishuk going to play this? Are we going to really play this? I don't feel comfortable about bishop d8. Bishop d8 makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, but you know after knight e4, white is comfortable. White is better here. I'm grabbing that. White, it's not like white is lost. I mean, black is lost, but the world of darks for bishops. But Ramirez was just too happy to simplify against a strong player. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. There are different levels of grandmasters. Onishuk here is basically just sacking a pawn. Damn. So he's going to take on b3. Here's another chance for black to be aggressive, and white to be aggressive. He could play bishop g2. Does black have enough compensation here? He has bishop g4. I'm kind of curious though. Yeah, wow. He has tons of compensation. So Ramirez has to. Wow, this is shocking, dude. Look at this game. So Ramirez really fucked up. He should have gone knight a4. Damn, dude. I was right about knight a4. But it's not a question of, like, I thought the other way was equal. He, like, has to play knight a4. Because after grabbing this pawn, he's worse. Knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. I also thought it was, like, nothing. I thought it would be maybe compensation. But the computer says black is clearly better here. Wow, dude. Yeah, Ramirez didn't appreciate that level of danger. He's very lucky he didn't lose this. That was reckless. But anyways, so that means knight b3 is a good move against queen e7. So the question is what your best move is in this position. a6 may well be decent. Let's see. So this gives you bishop a7. Knight b3 is the critical move. You've got bishop a7, and now he takes the pawn. Now the question is, Arsenal, who's stronger, Arsenal or Onishuk? There's a problem though. The queen on e7 protects that e6 guy. So now when you take, he takes, you're going to have to spend a move to defend against that. And he also has bishop b7. So this isn't as good. This isn't as good. So the question is, what's black's best move? And it's very close. Onishuk's move is ranked first. The other guy's move from 1991 is the second best. And then a6 is third best. So you've unimproved on 34 years of chess practice. Arsenal fan. Klaus Opel and Onishuk. We're degenerating now with the third best move. So knight b3 is good. Rook c1 is good. But this move is not. This move is really like. obviously the idea is a bishop takes h6, but I mean, I don't think that even works. Generally, you never put the queen on d2 in this type of Tarrasch because it's too likely to get attacked by knight e4 or knight these support points. Queen virtually never goes to d2 on the white side of a standard Tarrasch because it's always going to get attacked by a knight hitting one of those squares. But I think what you did here is very, very surprising. You know, because b5 weakens the c6 square. I mean, it looks like you could just play an Onishuk type of move, the queen e7. I mean, I want to play rook f8 again, but when he takes, you're going to have to take back with the pawn anyway. Probably. Queen e7 looks good. b5 I don't like. You're weakening this square. Yeah, I mean, d5 is falling, so. I will say, like you said, Drying Paint doesn't play like an 1800. I don't know who they are. The only other player from Lithuania we've had is Nedai, and he's nothing like this, stylistically. And definitely not a d4 player. So this guy, he donated $10 to the stream, too, I thought. Didn't he? Was it Drying Paint? I have to share his identity. So now, you have no choice. White has the dark square bishop. But if he damages his pawn structure, where's his comp? So white's better now, 2 bishops. What you'd like to do is trade off his bishop pair. You know, queen d7, bishop h3, trade the light square bishop on g2. Not so easy to do with your knight on d7 now. You know, this is an okay move. Rook c8. Queen d3. You're going to hit him again. He doesn't have a solid square. Maybe, yeah, b4 goes into another attack. So he already has a problem finding a square for his queen. Maybe queen e3. This is an odd move, but it looks interesting because you have weaknesses on this diagonal. Well, I think you're okay, but I think that white is better. You're definitely not lost, but I mean, I would prefer to be white with the 2 bishops and less weaknesses. Queen e3 looks best. Computer doesn't mind queen d4 though. It looks like it just walks right into rook c4, but the point is, okay, I understand. This is invading here. So he doesn't care about rook c4. He'll just go in. And then you see the drawbacks of playing b5. Rook c4 is not a threat. So he plays queen d3. This is definitely likely to get attacked at some point. Now, that's a very strange move. His knight has a tremendous number of good potential squares here. And he pulls the knight back. Now you're, I mean, now you have a lot of activity. The whole game is going to hinge on this now. You went from worse to better, at least equal. Now clearly you could play knight c6 maybe, but this is a good outpost. And that's what I meant by support points. If he takes, he's playing for a draw. But I think maybe he should consider it. What are you going to do? You know, the safer way to go is to trade queens here. You have the open file and the queenside majority against the 2 bishops. There's a problem though. Bishop b7. That sucks. So I don't know which way you should recapture. Yeah, sadly it looks like you're only equal. Yeah, he wanted to stop something with c4. Or he was playing some sort of fork. This bishop f4 might be a good move. And now you have a clear threat of bishop h3, which is a very strong exchange. b3. So he has a tactic with bishop takes h6. Otherwise, you're playing bishop h3 here. I don't like exchanging rooks, but what are your other options? Maybe knight e4. He has bishop a5. I don't care about that. Like, go here. Bishop a5. Rook e8. Now what? Well, you're threatening bishop h3. Yeah, I mean, I think you should... Yeah, you should move your knight off of f6. To me, that looks like the best move. Go here. I don't care about this, you know. He can force a draw, probably, by trading queens. But there's no way that he's better there. You're fine. But I think you have to be rational. By exchanging now, yeah, you're giving up the c file, or just trying to simplify, but you drop bishop takes h6. So he didn't see it. Yeah, so this is very lucky that he doesn't see this. Although maybe this version doesn't work. Takes. Takes. He's going to lose to takes. Queen takes. Queen takes. Check. You know, he might have seen this, right? You saw this. I don't know if he saw it. That particular version loses for him. That's actually really important. So you're not losing a pawn here after bishop h6. You're gaining a friend. He's losing on bishop takes h6 now. Oh, this is a very solid move. So he's down to 2 minutes to your 3. But white's still a little better. Yeah. Yeah, maybe he should stop that with like a3 or something. But I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, he could play a3, right? Probably his best bet. Though this is maybe okay. b4. Now bishop h3. So you never played bishop h3, ironically. Okay, queen c2 is good. And suddenly white is got to be very careful. So king g2. I don't know why we have no viewers. No one loves Arsenal. Nobody loves serious chess. They just want to play bullet. Did I drop the stream again? We're going to need more subs. A lot of people are away for the summer and it's hot. So what about king g2? I got your game. That's next. Is it a draw? Well, you're a little bit better. Oh shit, you have this. You have queen a1, attacking his pawn. So I was right about a3. This is a huge move for him. He had to play a3, Ars. He had to play a3. It's not a joke. That's a very important move. Yeah. This was a really big mistake. You had him down to like 2 minutes. But that's important to throw that in. Although it's very hard for him to make progress. He might be a tiny bit better there. So he tries h3. But oh, you're just taking his a2 pawn, right? You just won his whole queen side. He entirely missed it. There's nothing he can do. Because if he takes, you just take the bishop. Game over. Yeah, nice. Alright, not bad. Thank you, Arsenal, for sharing. This is a new subscriber, King's Indian. Practicing always. Against Maria. This is a simul. Yeah, everybody leaves. Nobody loves us. Mr. Snowhand, thanks for the gift sub today. So this is for the gift sub. We're black. Rapid simul. So it's a long time control. White the simul giver. Black with 15 minutes. Black is 15 plus 10. That's similar to what I do. Well, I give a bigger increment. Okay, so you played Aliakin, the Brooklyn variation. Yabata's never sent in a game today. We were looking at Brooklyn. D4. And now white plays pro move, knight f3. So now, Astrobate, now that you play the Dutch, you have to start playing Aliakin's defense against e4. Yeah, knight g8 isn't so bad. It's not so bad, actually. And, you know, a funny story about knight g8 was an expert Aliakin's defense player, a friend of mine, Sultan Varga. It's kind of known that apparently in the old days, the knight g8 was the original way to play the Aliakin's defense, and it was like forgotten, and then brought back, you know, later. It was like the original way to play it, and knight d5 was invented later, but a lot of people don't know that, including me at the time. So, knight f3, d takes e5. You know, you obviously have other moves here. The g6, and of course bishop g4. There's also, speaking of Soli Varga, he's played a lot of these lines, like side lines, knight b6, c6. So he likes to play those. There was that weird account. You guys remember? There was this weird account that kept playing this against me. You guys remember? It was Casabianca that ostensibly that account was banned eventually. I mean, they were playing like GM level. And then kept claiming that they weren't cheating against me. And then eventually their account got banned. But he had this tendency to play this really weird e6 move here. And there was a very small, like, outside possibility that could have been like a titled player fucking with me. Say it was like a bored, very strong I am weak GM. Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking. But it's weird that Mihai Grunberg Cup comes up with a game here. You know, because he would be like exactly right about that level where maybe a little bit stronger than me, a little younger, strong enough to play like a GM and pretend to be like a Potzer or random guy. If he wasn't cheating, then he was a titled player. I swear, dude, he got in the top 10 in Rapid. And there is a small possibility he was a titled player who didn't want to like show his identity or something. That is weird, though, that Grunberg has a game. I don't know him. I knew his dad. I met his dad years ago, who's an IM as well. But e6, very strange move. How did I play this? I know what it was. It wasn't disposition, though. It wasn't disposition, right. Now, we know what the guy did. He would take and then play e6. I'm sorry. So now we got to have another search. It's not Grunberg. Oh, fuck. There's another possible candidate, Drazic. Drazic would be actually the also exactly the right level to be fucking with me, you know. Same strength as Grunberg. Drazic totally makes sense. He plays all kinds of weird, trashy openings, and he's a strong player. And he's friends with my friend. We have a mutual friend who's known to watch my stream, who happens to be a strong GM. That would explain some strange things, actually. That's a serious possibility that that guy was Drazic. Alright, anyway. So knight f3, d takes c5, knight takes c5. If you play e6, you might be Drazic. I'll have to ask. I can find out. I never thought of this theory before. g6, bishop e2. So bishop e2. Bishop e2, you know, bishop e2 can't be bad. Drazic is like 2200 now. I think he's like a few years older than me. Probably sold too many games or something. I told you guys the story how he cured the Indian player with COVID, who had to go like the next day to Doha. They're pouring Palinka up his nose. If you do that, you'd probably like pretend to be like a random potzer on my stream. Alright, bishop e2. Not the main line though. Bishop c4. Bored Grandmaster trolling me on my stream? Possible. Bishop e2, very, very quiet move. Bishop g7, castle, castle, and now c3. Okay, there's a problem here. Black's threatening c5. So the point is, if black is threatening c5 because the knight on e5 is not protected, then c3 isn't going to cut it. I mean, it's like white's entire advantage is based on this pawn. If that pawn is eliminated, white is not better. So if I'm to move here with black, I'm 100% playing c5, undermining white's center and neutralizing and equalizing at least. So white plays c3, you play c5. What's white going to do? Can't take. He has to let you take on d4, and the best he can get is some kind of IQP position, probably. That's why white has to play a different move now, not c3. I imagine white could play a lot of moves. I mean, I guess knight c3 wouldn't help too much. There you could just play c5 or take and play c5. So it appears to be like c4 is the only move that people play here. But I'm not afraid of this. It doesn't look like bishop e2 is good enough. And the bottom line is, it appears that bishop e2 is not good enough for white. So they have to play something like here immediately, or bishop c4, which is the more standard move. See, if bishop c4, they have the queen f3 idea. And the point is, if you have to play c6, you can't play c5. And therefore white remains a little bit better, right? This is the way like a Michael Adams would play it. Let's see, queen f3, bishop e6, and here's Varga. Of course, playing a good friend, but castles, bishop g7, rook e1, defending the knight, castles, and now c3. If you have time to play c3, fine. But the important thing is that black is not playing c5. So, white plays c3, you hit him with c5. And this happened in an Istrichescu game, 0-1. And it happened in another game, 0-1. So what does white do now? Right, in a classical OTB game. Well, anyway, c5, you're at least equal after c5. So after this move, you're just, yeah, you're equalizing too. Almost. The problem is that white still has a tiny, tiny edge now. Knight d7, that's super boring. Yeah, I guess you could take with the queen, but bishop takes seems better. And then bishop f3. This is really lame, but solid for white. And c6. And now it's, yeah, white has a micro advantage. Knight a3, rook e8. Now if you can play e5. You know, but you can't. So I don't know if you should play. I don't know if you should play rook e8. You know, to be honest with you. What about e5? I mean, this is a conversation we have to have here. You can suffer slightly worse. But I think you should play a different move. I don't like rook e8. It's too dogmatic, you know. First of all, you can play bishop e6, which would stop knight c4. So you have this trick. But there, I guess white just plays like queen e2 or something. Bishop e6 ultimately isn't that great either. But what I want to suggest is going here directly. If you play e5, white has to take. And now the only question is, does or can white grab the pawn? I mean, speaking of the Tarash, Arsenal fan, because this looks like a good pawn sack to me. I'm having like flashbacks to the Marshall Gambit. Is there compensation? Well, definitely. How do you feel about bishop h6, bishop takes h2 check? It's like a Marshall. I'm not even sure if like white wants to take that pawn. The pawn's not going anywhere, you know. Maybe you're better off not taking it. What do I know? What do I know about chess? It's the third best move after h3 and bishop e3. Computer understands. I don't know, ask Mr. Slow if he would take it. Because Mr. Slow has a lot of experience, you know. I don't think Mr. Slow would take it. I've played too many games against him. When I try to sacrifice pawns like this, he doesn't take them. He'll just blockade. It's like a Marshall, exactly. No, this is really instructive. Black has compensation. It's your chance to play e5. Then you take it now, or you know you don't take it. But I think rook e8 doesn't help because he's just coming here anyway, and he's shutting down e5. And you want to trade off your dark square bishop. But there's another problem here with this d6 square. Okay, whatever. You can wait, you know, but it's possible that white gets a lock on e5 and you're never able to free your position. You had a chance to free your position. What is the compensation after queen takes e5? Well, it's pretty obvious, you know. There's a multifaceted, you know. The compensation is two bishops. It's your turn. White has light square weaknesses all over the place. And his knight is on a3. You know. h2 is a target. There's possible bishop c6 attacking that diagonal. So all of those things together, and it's like the engine actually thinks black is fully equal. I agree. Even if you don't get an attack or something, this would be very hard for white to convert to a win. Like, I don't think Dimzovich would take it. You know, he would definitely Nimzovich would definitely not take it, because taking it activates black's bishops. I think you go just like queen c7 here or something. And now what's white going to do? Play f4? Maybe yes, play f4. But that doesn't look great. His king is even more open now. Yeah, maybe h3. Okay, h3 is safer. I agree. But now it's like more tempy, you know. Bishop c6 onto that diagonal. Rook's coming to the center. Wow, that was crazy. Sorry, guys. Just grabbed the board and like flung it at you. That hasn't happened in a long time. How did I do that? I grabbed the corner of the board by accident. So anyway, rook e8 leads you into one of those passive situations in the Alekhine that I was trying to get that guy in. But I mean, the following move is this. It's, you know, is knight b5? It's a move, yeah. But I mean, the white is only okay. White's next move though is it's an atrocity. This move should come with like banishment from chess. There are a bunch of games I played in the last like 10 years where people like played bishop takes knight on d5. Yeah, like sacking back the pawn. But this move is serious atrocity, you know? Like, is white trying to lose or what? With bishop takes d5? It's like you're trying to lose. I mean, okay, the knight it's strong, but it's still not worth a light square bishop. All of white's pawns like are primarily on dark squares. That means the light square bishop is the defender of the white squares. If you trade that off, what are you getting for it? You know, this is a very bad move. Now you don't necessarily want to play e6. You may have a more efficient way to play this. If you could play in the center with like bishop c6, f6, e5. Yeah, that's what you did. That's what you did, see? She, I guess, Maria, I don't know, is hoping for e6. So this totally makes sense. This is an advanced move. Your bishop looks bad, but you have f6 and e5. Or just e5. You fundamentally did exactly the same thing what I said. Well, what's white's best move here? Well, if knight g4... my assumption is that you would play f6. And then white has, you know, some interesting moves. Knight h6 check, maybe bishop to h6. Trying to trade the bishop off. You can avoid that, though. But at least she has some play. But I think this move is weird. So now I expected... it does do something, though. Yeah, okay, she has queen e6. Okay, so queen c8's a very good move by you, too. That's subtle. Your idea is trade queens, you're good. Play for f6 and e5. On the other hand, you know, you could have played e5 directly. And there can't be anything wrong with playing e5 directly. You were afraid you would get pinned or something with queen g3? It's not a problem. Well, I don't think you need to exchange queens. Development is... You're actually ahead in development, and you have 2 bishops. Trading queens is... it's okay. But I think you go ahead and play e5 here. You're slightly better. Nothing wrong with queen c8, really. And e5 is the right idea. But maybe you helped white a little bit, because now white has like knight g4. You have back rank. Oh no. So this wins a pawn. Now white has a back rank problem too. Jeez. But they can't let you play e5 unanswered. It looks like white has to take here. What else is white going to do? Knight g4 works. Wow. So they have to sack a pawn. Knight g4, pawn takes pawn, losing a pawn. Knight h6 check, king f8. And then suddenly your king isn't safe. Okay. You can take, and it's a draw. Probably a draw. Though it's still sharp with opposite colored bishops. Yeah, so queen h4 is really bad. You have takes, takes, rook e4, and you're winning. I mean, winning in the sense that you're clearly better. Clearly better. Clear pawn up. Crushing pass pawn down the middle. Bishop d2. I mean, it's like plus 1.5 plus 2 for black here. Wow, even bigger. It's plus 4. It's that big, it's plus 4. Jeez, it's worse than I thought. So it turns out their queen is almost trapped. You have a direct attack with bishop e5. You should never offer a draw, but I don't know what your time situation was. Yeah, you're just crushing white. Absolutely. And another pawn. And they've got no attack. Yeah, this is devastating. So obviously drawing offer was incorrect. Luckily they didn't accept it. And then a nice finishing blow, because queen e2 check, queen g2. Queen g2 is going to lead to mate in 3. If king takes, check, king g3, check, king f4, and rook. Yeah. So you totally outplayed them, but yeah, I think the earlier e5 was even stronger, sacking the pawn. This gives white a better game. Looks like you know white is. I feel like white is a tiny bit better here. And you play queen c7, very standard. But I assure you, if you're playing like Adams or some strong grandmaster who's like a squeezy grinder, you're gonna be like suffering in this position. Yeah, I mean obviously rook e1 is good, rook a d8 okay, but this move is an atrocity. I mean bishop takes d5 is terrible. So guys, I'm gonna share this Rockport game. No more subscriber games. This is it. It's very hot here. We're still over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This is from the Ooze Open or whatever, the Ooze International. Rockport just played this the other day, 2 days ago, against Prang Ha. So it starts out with an anti-Grunfeld f3. You know, a lot of people, the hardcore Grunfeld guys will try to play d5 anyway. I don't know where the theory of that is now. Caruana was playing that with white. You know, black has all the standard choices here: Benoni, Grunfeld, King's Indian. But Rockport, I don't really look at his games much, but this was pointed out to me. d6 is a normal same-ish. Sometimes people will play knight e2 here. I don't know why Rockport didn't do that. There's this weird idea, Mr. Slow has surely seen this, but your countryman, before he had a stroke, about 15 years, more than 15 years ago, Werner Demo, he used to play this. We had a couple German guys in the first Saturday playing all the time, and I remember Werner and Bruchkern, this IM and FM, in the last times. Bruchkern is still here, but he's kind of a weird guy. I like Demo. I don't know if you ever met him, Mr. Slow, but he had a stroke and was not the same after that. I don't know what his status is in Germany. Probably still alive. Knight ec3, kind of an interesting approach if you use this particular move order. You know him, okay. Yeah, well anyway, he was a very nice guy. It was tragic. He was playing in Mako. It was like the mid-2000s, the late mid-2000s. And he suddenly had a stroke and then he had to go back to Germany. It was a disaster. Alright, so knight e2. Anyway, I remember he was working on this line. They were playing it like 15 years ago. He still plays. That's good. American International Master John Watson had the same thing happen. He was around the same age, you know, like late 50s, and had a stroke. And then he, you know, he's still able to play in tournaments and stuff, similar to Demo. Okay, knight e2. Anyway, suggestion. Well, he did. But he's young, isn't he? Arsenal fan. Knight c3, castles. Could have like an aneurysm or something. At any age. I didn't know that. Knight ge2. Now, the main move is bishop e3. I've played same as also bishop g5. One thing I was thinking about, though, was, I don't know what Mr. Slow, because he's also a King's Indian player, thinks about this, but what's the advantage in playing like knight on g to e2? I mean, you still, I never played this move, but you keep like the option to play bishop g5 or bishop e3. I don't really understand exactly any kind of concrete advantage in the move. You know, it has the best score, ironically, for white by a very small margin. It's kind of funny. Maybe people don't pay attention to this move as much for whatever reason with black. But I like the way that Roper played this. You know, years ago, I looked at some similar lines in the bishop g5, probably. So he plays, yeah, flexible, but who cares? He plays a6. So I don't know about your hero. I'm not seeing any Gawain Jones games here. So, I mean, obviously black can play like, you know, e5 or knight on bd7. Knight on bd7 is fine. Knight on bd7, Mr. Slow, didn't you play like this against me? Some knight on bd7. There's Gawain Jones, losing to Andrew Tang. Ouch, that hurts. I hope it was a bullet game. Maybe it's a little bit against knight c6 somehow, against the pano. I wonder. Does it discourage people from playing knight c6 for some reason? John Watson would probably know, ironically. If we could combine John Watson and Nemo into one person, they would definitely be an expert on playing the white side of, actually both sides of this King's Indian. But Roper plays a6, which is interesting. And notice how this bishop is blocked. White plays bishop e3. As I said, you know, bishop g5 is possible too. That I'm a little more familiar with. In fact, I think I even had a game years ago against somebody. I probably played this with both colors. I remember playing it with black and white. And I won both games. I won a game in the New York Open with white against Matikosian, and I won with black against Sultan Lehman years and years ago, back in 97, 98. So I have a good score, but that's not bishop g5. He plays bishop e3. And now the point is, this here is a little bit blocked. Black plays knight on bd7 with ideas of c5, obviously, queen d2, but now, you know, when I'm expecting black to play c5, which is John Watsonville. John also wrote a lot of stuff on the King's Indian years ago. Like, he loved the King's Indian. Same-ish. b5. And so this is interesting because suddenly look at this. All the games are 2017 or later. So that's interesting. Joe Benjamin. It was obviously featured in the U.S. Senior Championship a couple of times. Andrew Tang strikes again, losing to Benjamin Bach. That's the earliest. No, there's a Kojul game from 2017. So, does that mean that Kojul is the originator of this? Freya Chess, rating with Party of 9. We needed that raid because now we have, like, you know, at least 9 viewers. Thank you Freya Chess for rating. Our stream count is probably not updated, but we're getting low on viewers. If I get down to single digits, Well, my tournaments are fine, but when we do like analysis stream, I'm in the single digits. People don't want to take chess seriously. Uh, oh, G Christensen with 200 bits. Thank you. So we're checking out a really awesome game from the Ooze tournament like 2 days ago, and I don't do a lot of master, recent game analysis, but this is a great game. But this is new. This whole thing is new, and I'm just curious about there's no Gawain Jones examples here. Maybe Gawain likes the Pano type stuff. But what I do find interesting is the fact that Kojal was the first one to play this. So, you guys maybe know, but I know for a fact that the Croatian Grandmaster Zdenko Kojal, long time, board one for Croatia, he's older now, but a big expert in some things like the King's Indian, the Sicilian classical. He wrote a book, like, for example, he has his own variation in the classical Sicilian Richter Rouser with black. All of his analysis, they didn't use a computer to like publish a whole book. Like, he insisted. All of the variations were from his head, so they wrote like a 250-page book or 200-page book on the Rouser with no computer, analysis at all. But imagine, he's the first one, 2017, to play this line with black. That's pretty cool. Because he's already like a senior in 2017. Not a bad novelty. So Rockport from the other day. Now, if you're white here, after b5, we were expecting c5. Black just played knight of bd7. b5 comes. And so it's a pawn sacrifice, like a Benko idea. But it's important to remember that white is not castled queenside in this position. So the main move for white is c takes b5. The second most common for white is this bishop h6. And the problem with bishop h6 is black can play e5, and play a closed dark square pawn structure where that exchange of bishops really black doesn't mind, later. So he doesn't mind trading darks for bishops. This isn't a threat the way it is in a dragon, because of black's ability to play e5. And so that's normally considered to be not a big deal in the same-ish. So the question is, like, what should white do? Can he keep the tension somehow? Like, one player played knight c1. Alistair. He's a cultist. No, this guy played once here. Alistair Crawley. Very rare name. Unusual. Not Alistair Crawley. Anyway, so what should white do? Firouzja, no, not Firouzja. Prognosta goes for it with h4. And that's fine, but you're not castled queenside. I'm scared of that too. So let's see the main line. cb5, ab5. Notice there's one game with knight b6. Dreyev. Wow. Okay. So guys, Kojal's first game was in 2017. What's this? Dreyev Gumula from 2011. Saddam and Gumula. So somehow they transposed. But nobody cared about Gumula because he's unknown. So Alexei here, what would Alexei do? He's not playing h4 and castling queenside. I absolutely guarantee it. But this knight b6 isn't good. So this is a very good move by Dreyev. A very sensible continuation by Dreyev. Right, okay. So knight b6 not a problem. Takes here. Knight takes b5. And so this is the point. Grishuk, Grishuk, Grishuk. Demchenko, Saric, a lot of good players. You would think that black is playing like bishop a6. So now check this out. There's c6, a very surprising move. Black goes back, and so black has sacrificed a pawn on the queen side. Where is the compensation? This is Dingli Grishuk, Duda Grishuk, Duda Grishuk. Oh, there's Jones. So even Jones is involved. E5. White has to be very careful. Rook D1. Notice he's not castling queenside. Okay, anyway. Black has pretty good chances. This is a very interesting line, D5. This has all been checked with the computer, probably. And Shabalov copied. No, that's even older. So Jones is just getting on the bandwagon late here. Very interesting. Novikov beat Shaba in the U.S. Senior 2020. So anyway, but what White does is unbelievable. He plays H4, and this has been played before. But notice the games where this has been played. 12 games. Correspondence, 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 correspondence. One real game in Pierluigi Basso. Looks like another one. Ingersoll, I think that's an over-the-board player. So basically, it's all a bunch of correspondence games and then like one or two real games. So watch what Rapport has here. H5, like a Soltis dragon, slowing down the attack. Believe me, I've tried to play crap like G4. That's not going to work. This is not the dragon. Castle's queenside. Maybe you better not do that. And now, this has been played, but, you know, you got nothing there. That doesn't even make sense, you know. Bishop B7 doesn't make sense in this position. It doesn't make sense. You're blocking the B file. Now, the only thing you can do is maybe Queen B8. But Bishop B7 itself, it doesn't do anything on that diagonal. So the point is that he plays E5. And I don't know, what is White supposed to do? Everybody played D5. Now you can't take on B5 because the A file is pretty dangerous. So he plays D5. And all three games where this position was reached, including Basso's game, he's a strong player from Italy. Basso with White beat a 2300. Black played B takes C4. But you know, like, and check this out, Knight B1. You know, in the like, Czech Benoni, for example, Spassky used to play setups like sacking the c-pawn with White. That c-pawn can actually get in the way of Black. It can be like a human shield. So this is a huge improvement by Rapport, I think. And the computer says dubious, but I don't think so. I really don't think this is dubious. I think this is an improvement. Very possibly an improvement. And so White has nothing better than to take on B6, giving up his good dark square bishop. Black takes. White takes on B5. And now A takes B5. White could take on B5, but we lose A2. So he plays King B1, and then B4, and now Knight B5. And now the whole point is that White would be better here. Except for one thing. And you got the impression that Rapport had analyzed this far in this line. He could have played, this is cool, he could have played Bishop D7 because the pawn on D6 is immune. Black has just trapping the knight. You can just trap the knight with Queen C7, or you can play like Bishop A4, which is also good. So even Bishop D7 is okay, but somehow White's like still a little bit better there. Yeah, Queen takes B4. Yeah, he just defends the knight, and he's a pawn up. So watch this. The point is, Knight takes D5, and sacking a piece. If you take with the Queen, Bishop E6 is a cooler. I mean, it's, forget it. So he can not take it, or he can play pawn takes. I don't know, if you don't take it, what do you do? Can white do anything else here besides taking it? I mean, I guess we're still ultimately threatening like bishop e6. I don't know. Other moves like rook a5. The knight on b5 is semi-trapped. White can play this, right? What about knight c1? I think we're going to have to look at knight c1. Doesn't that seem like a logical move? What is Rapport doing after that? Let's take a look. Wow, it's zeros. All right, I vote for knight c1. What would Rapport have done? I don't know. But knight f4 is best, apparently. With 0.0 after queen takes b4, d5. But this is a sharp 0.0. Very imbalanced position. Now it actually looks like a dragon after knight f4 and d5. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Pragnanadha is like out of his mind. He played this, check. He's trying to defend this position, and I guess if you're a computer, it might work. But Rapport plays too well. Rook a4, defending the b4 pawn. Like, only move. Knight c1. And now queen d7, doubling the rooks, preventing g4. Here, this is obvious. Defending d5, defending a2, preventing b3, keeping the knight defended, developing a piece. And now not rook a8. Rook a8 was possible. But rook c8. And this move is kind of tricky. We're attacking a bishop, okay, but there's more to it. Queen e2, and then a beautiful move, e4, which is, speaking of Geller, right, and like the classic King's Indian players, opening that bishop, that's why you don't castle queenside in the Benoni. Okay, now I understand. I didn't know, I thought it was a King's Indian. It's a Benoni. Oh, shit. Wait, it's a dragon. Once I saw Soltis absolutely crush one guy in a King's Indian where the bishop was open like that, it was sick, you know? So if you take the pawn, I mean, obviously there's bishop g4 at minimum. White plays bishop b3 attacking the rook, and then Rapport just takes an f3, so now he never has to worry about his bishop getting trapped. Both of his bishops are great. He's down a piece, but who cares, right? Pawn takes, controlling e4, controlling g4. White's up a piece, what could go wrong? And now rook a5, attacking the knight, saving his rook from being captured. And what is White supposed to play? You know, his knight is hanging. He has to play knight d4. This is the only move. He has to play knight d4. And trying to remember what we said. After knight d4, rook c1, right? It's rook c1. Yeah, rook c1, and bishop takes d4. And I think black's actually better. So, Pragnanadha declined this, which is like his last chance. What's the evaluation? It looks like he can probably survive. White's up the exchange, but black has monster bishops and a good pawn structure, sort of. But anyway, he plays bishop c4, and now the amazing move of the game, which I would have probably missed, which most people would have missed. This is unbelievable. Bishop c2. That, I think, is the best move of the game. Because it's not obvious, you know? You're just hanging a bishop. Doesn't take anything. But it's rather inconvenient for white. Now, if you take with the queen, the point is actually very subtle. The problem for white is he's like what? He's up a lot of material. After queen takes, bishop takes, rook takes, he's still up a piece. But I think this rook takes b2 is a killer. Rook takes b2. There's nothing you can do about the long diagonal. And so, try to save your bishop or something. I don't know. What do you want to play? This is unbelievable. Bishop d3, rook takes. And now we're threatening rook b3 mate. As if life wasn't difficult already. How do you prevent rook b3 mate? That's kind of awkward. I'm beginning to think like white's best move might be a4 or something. No, wait, that's not good either. This is so perverse. a4 is not good. a3 is not good. Nothing's good. It's so sick. So that's the point. And then, so he tries this, right? Rook d2. Now the bishop pops over on the other side with bishop a4. Now the knight is like trapped. So he goes knight d4. And now white's up a piece. He's still up a piece. He's still up a piece. But, yeah, there's a little problem here. And there's a problem here with the long diagonal. Here. Now you're going to lose the piece back. And if you lose the piece back, you're busted. So he goes knight c6, cutting us off. And now takes. How convenient. And now if you take, well, needless to say, triple attack on the, triple attack on the c-file is kind of a problem. So he tries to continue here. Bishop takes, knight b3, winning the exchange. Rook takes c4. And now if pawn takes, well, I guess white could play this. Maybe this is actually a reasonable try. It's not good enough. Why is it so bad for white? Let's say queen takes. Well, white is 2 pawns down, plus getting like attacked. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So after this, he plays queen takes c4, bishop b5, queen e4, bishop c4, and then rook c2. Rook c2, question mark, b5, knight c1, rook e8, queen f4, queen a7. And now we're threatening b3. And maybe even queen a3 in some variations. Yeah, and bishop takes a2. I wouldn't be surprised if queen a2 might work. Rook a8. So white sacks back, takes back, and now material is even. It's even. Draw. b3. This isn't the best move, apparently. At this point, all woke grandmasters would resign with white. No? He's only -6. It's not politically correct to play this out. So, b takes c. He doesn't take it. Yeah, he takes it. b3. This isn't the best move. He had queen f2. Laser. But why do that? This is much more fun. It's much more fun to play b3. And if rook takes, then we play queen f2. So, rook d1, b takes a, human shield activated, queen a2, and that's never a good thing. I actually, yeah, I was looking at a stupid move here, queen b7, but then white just plays king b1 and the beat goes on. So this is much more accurate, keeping pressure on b2. White's only down a pawn, right, guys? Queen b3, and then rook e3. And then sadly, white decided to give it up here. So the point is, you can't lead the b2 pawn. Queen check doesn't really do anything. I just go to h7, and now I'm threatening rook a3. Actually, an even more devilish move. Queen c2 is actually black's biggest threat. Queen c2 with the idea of rook a3, which is mate at that point. But if you show this to a random person, I mean, they wouldn't have a clue that white is like -10 I think it's like made in 15 or something at this point. Maybe bishops are a little stronger than knights, but you definitely don't want to castle queenside with an open, dragon slash King's Indian bishop. Very dangerous business. I mean, I remember years ago. I just remember years ago, like Tal playing like that with white. There was some Tal Kamsky game, one of his last tournaments. Maybe Tal actually tried to castle queenside in one of these. Yeah, it's very sharp to castle queenside in a Zamish. There are some variations where it's done. Well, white's Christensen, G. Christiansen, which is one of the safest white ways to play. We saw is bishop h6 here, right here, like killing the bishop right away. That happens in the Pierts. This isn't really about attacking, it's about prophylaxis almost. You're eliminating the threat before it starts. But I remember this game I had with what's his name, Milov, Vadim Milov, who was like almost 2,700. We had this game where it was a Pierts with a similar structure, and I was white, and I did bishop h6, and he played e5, and I was like, what am I doing? It occurred to me, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I trading? Why am I trading my dark square bishop, my good bishop, off for black's bad bishop? If black's gonna put the pawn on e5. So here's a basso game, bishop g7, king g7. This is actually a different game. Bishop g7, king g7, cb5, ab5, knight takes b5. He grabs the pawn. Black plays bishop a6. Notice that black can't play c6 here, like another variation. So there has to be a subtle reason why black doesn't play e5 here. Black takes on h6 instead. Bishop takes h6. And there's another basso game. So that basso guy is he's like a Samish expert. I didn't know him. I only know of him. So, yeah, but anyway, this is also overrated. Like black taking on c4. Yeah, but I think that what Praggnanandhaa showed here is like a total lack of. He showed total lack of sense of danger. Yeah, he's not going to get wrecked like that against Rapport again. I don't know what their personal score is, but he just realized oh my God, this wasn't the right kind of position to play against this guy. Definitely not a good idea. You want to bore Rapport to death probably. I beat him with white. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. Thanks everybody for joining me. Yeah, that was a long time ago. He was a newly minted grandmaster when I beat him in 2011. Don't play the same mesh with white unless you know what you're doing, and definitely don't castle queenside. But Rapport, you got to admit, here, the whole position hinges on knight takes d5. If Rapport doesn't have knight takes d5, how bad is it? Bishop d7. Yeah, bishop d7. b3 is interesting. But this is like night and day. This is such a critical move. I don't believe for a minute that he didn't know this position before the game. This is probably obviously he would find it, but I believe this is probably home preparation. Maybe not. I mean, honestly, who would expect Praggnanandhaa to go nuts with this h4? This is a very risky way to play. The only other games here... Okay, Basso did it against the 2300. But again, let's see. Just because you play h4 doesn't mean you're supposed to castle queenside. Look at this. Basso against another Italian from a few years ago. Last year, 2024. Watch what happens. h5, castles queenside. He did castle queenside. Jeez. So e5. This is the line. Okay. So he went into this. Wow. So Basso led Praggnanandhaa down the garden path. And then maybe Rockport had seen this position. Because it looks like knight b6 is an improvement. Computer doesn't evaluate this position right. It just doesn't see the long run. Bishop takes h6, c takes b6, c takes b5, a takes b5. Apparently king b1 is better. This is better and safer. That's, to be fair to Prananana, better try. Alright guys, thanks for joining us. That was a beautiful game by Rockport. Thanks for the raid from lichess, and we'll be back. So be back tomorrow with some blitz. If I haven't died of heat exhaustion. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I will see you all. Thanks for the support. Thanks to the bits, gift subs, and blitz tomorrow, simul on Sunday. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.